Hey, this is Livingston. I'm with Taylor Olson. How you doing, Olson?
Hello, that's me.
Yeah.
I'm doing all right. How about yourself?
Not bad. And we got a guest today, Alex Vaski. How you doing today?
Hey, man, doing great. Good to talk to you.
Yeah, good to talk to you, too. Tell us a little bit about yourself. What do you do?
So I am a producer and composer of all types of music. I originally focused just on dubstep, and I had a bit of success traveling the world and around the United States doing that. And, you know, DJing, writing, selling music, and all sorts of things like that. And now I'm focused on producing my own stuff, but then also writing for media. I've relocated from Minnesota to Los Angeles, and I'm doing a lot of writing for TV and just now starting out to write for some short films and things like that now.
Oh, cool.
I was thinking about this earlier today, like how we originally met. I think the first time I saw you perform as Vaski was maybe 2010 or 2011. It was at I don't know if you remember this. It was at a bowling alley in Blaine.
Yeah.
Totally. The Brunswick Zone or something.
Like
I remember going to that because there's a whole bunch of other DJs and stuff there, and that's where I first heard your music. And I think it was a couple of years later that we got together and worked on that documentary that was never finished. That's my bad, I guess. We got some, we kind of kept in contact since then.
Yeah.
But I mean, obviously it's kind of cool to see, someone from Minnesota, because I'm from Minnesota, succeed so well in the music industry. But like when you were growing up, like what were some of the influences in terms of musical influences?
Yeah, it was strange being from Minnesota and wanting to do what I did, and I'm sure that you feel a similar way. Growing up in the Midwest, I know that it's a very artistic area, especially Minneapolis. We're famous for having Prince and everything, but there's not a whole lot of other people that are creating at this level that we are outside of that. So, yeah, it was kind of strange, and I sort of felt like I was on an island, metaphorically, just being out there, and then the rest of people in, like, L.A. and New York and places like that. But because of the internet and the way that things have gone, it's been more and more easy, I think, to be connected. So I discovered a lot of electronic music, even just through iTunes and Beatport and just, selling music online. And as soon as I started to hear it, I immediately liked it more than other stuff that I heard on the radio. And I was just sort of drawn to it. But a few things that come to mind, like the first time I heard The Prodigy, Always Outnumbered, Never Outgunned, that album, I was immediately interested in that, and that was like some of the craziest stuff I'd ever heard. And then also there was a band called Pendulum that I really liked. That was like drum and bass and vocals. It's really cool. Bringing those two things together in an interesting way. So yeah, I just started to hear that, and then I just wanted to find how you could make it. I heard that sort of vibe in the music, and I didn't understand it, and I felt that I could make my contribution, or that I could do it. So I was always interested in music, and I had music software and things that you could arrange your own loops and stuff. There's this program called Sony Acid where you could take drum loops and piano loops and arrange them together and sort of make your own mixes. But then I got even more into it, and I was in high school band and doing piano lessons and just learning a lot about music. And I just always was interested in it. I took to it pretty quickly. So after a while of doing that, I caught on really early on to that whole thing. So I was even like arranging my own songs when I was 12. And then by the time I was in high school, I was actually selling physical CDs to people around, selling CDs to my friends and to whoever wanted to buy them. And I was just obsessed with trying to figure out how to do it as much as possible.
That was more electronic music that you were selling?
Yeah, that was electronic music.
So
That was breakbeat stuff.
You started doing that that was my next question. When did you start creating electronic music? And that was, I guess you were 12.
Yeah, I wasn't really fully creating it. I was sort of messing around with it on the computer, but
right.
I was 14 when I got FL Studio, which is the software that I used to use for a really long time, and a lot of people use that software still, like Soldier Boy and Spore and a few other people, and Avicii. But yeah, anyway, so I got that software, which is like a full music making software, when I was 14. So that's when I started to really make it. But by the time I didn't actually really make any money or do anything real with it until I was about 18, and that's when I was DJing, and I started to DJ raves and different events around the city. because it was pretty easy that I would just play music at people's parties, and then eventually they wanted me to like play my own music and then mix records and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So that kind of happened, and then they were like, "Oh, you produce and make music. That's pretty cool. You should put your music on the internet," because I hadn't really done that before. So I started to put it on forums and things like that, and then that way I started to meet other people from around the world that were interested in what I did, and that's when I started to really get into it. And then I put my music on MySpace, and then I reached out to a bunch of record labels, and the artist Excision ran a label called Rotten Recordings, and they wanted to sign me. So they hit me back. I sent it out to probably like 20 different labels, and they're the only ones that replied to me. But they wanted to sign me, and then I released music on their record label. And then through that, I had music on Beatport. And then through having music on Beatport, some agent approached me and wanted to book me shows. And it just kept growing, and it's just kind of been a wild ride ever since then.
It's interesting to me because, like, I'm trying to find, like, an actual, I work in the film industry, so I'm trying to find a metaphor for the kind of music that you do. It really, a lot of it is so, like, it's dependent on you. Like, you create a lot of it, you create all of it for a lot of times. It's not like a band where you have other members and have to depend on other people. It's like,
right.
It's solely on you, so, you almost have no excuse for when something's not getting done, in a way. But I think it's also kind of interesting is that, people who are self-motivated, they don't have to depend on anyone else to create music now. They can just, if they want to take a path like that, there's so many easy ways. I remember, not easy ways, but, you have to obviously work hard at it and be good at it, but you can do it. I remember when I first discovered GarageBand, and I hope no one ever finds the stuff that I made because it's just terrible, but, it's fun to kind of learn on your own. I never really pursued it all that much. I'd make like a little drum beat, and then I'd be like, oh, that's cool. And then I think I posted it on this was a long time ago, and I hope it's off the internet by now, but it's kind of interesting to see that kind of comparison. Like when I go to a coffee shop to write like a screenplay or something like that, it's like, well, I don't have to wait around for someone else to do something before I can start. It's like this is fully on me. So yeah, it kind of is that self-motivating thing in a way. You have to be self-motivated to do it.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that there's so many different types of people, and some people are acclimated to that. Some people work well that way, and then some people need to be part of a team. I like both, but I don't like waiting for other people. I'd rather just get it done myself, and I think that's why it works for me.
That's how, when people would ask how we did our film, obviously we had other people do it, but, I knew a lot of people who are, I would tell people, like, it doesn't really matter how talented you are if you're not going to do it.
Right.
It just doesn't. So it's like, it doesn't matter, what the most important thing is that self-motivation type of thing to start and actually finish something. If it's good or bad, whatever, you actually finish something, and then you learn from it, and the next one's better, hopefully.
Yeah, that's totally true. It's like it's taking the action of making it happen and then actually finishing it. There's a lot of people that will talk about things, and then there's the next level, which is people that talk about things and then start them, and then the third level after that, I guess, is people that start them and then finish them. And then after after you start to finish products and like make things that are cool, then you'll get better at it. So I think that's really the main process.
And you'll start to gain an audience that way as well, and to show that you actually produce content consistently as well. So we were wondering. I think you told me the story before, but how did you come up with the name Vaski for your DJ name?
I knew that I had to have something that was original, that would have good search engine optimization. Like if you searched me, then you would find me.
Very unique.
Yeah, so I wanted to make up a word or do something that was unique, and I couldn't really think of much. So I just started to put like letters that I thought were cool in random word generators and try different things. And then it eventually came up with Tor Vaski, and then I just was like, oh, that's pretty cool. And then I shortened it to Vaski. And it was funny because at the time, the biggest artists were Rusko and Scream, and I was like, okay, so that you have to have like a pretty short name, like around 5-ish letters, and then it just kind of worked.
Yeah, two syllable kind of thing, easy to remember.
Yeah.
No, that's
yeah, exactly. Cool. And there is an island called Vaski off the coast of Finland, and then it also means copper in some language or something like that. But when you search it, you'll come up with me very easily.
Yeah.
And funnily enough, now there's actually quite a few other artists that have a very similar name to me that made their names well after I did. Like, there's a guy named Vaski, there's a guy named Caspi, there's a guy named Oski, and it's pretty obvious where they got it from.
So ski is a popular thing to use in names. Ski.
I know, right?
What led you to film, like, composing for it and so forth?
Yeah, well, it's interesting to see, coming from the live music side of things, to see how much of that same skill translates to writing music for film. Because you're really, if you really dumb it down, you're doing the same thing, and that's controlling energy and telling a story. Like, if you're writing music for film, then the music is telling people how to feel, or, like, sort of putting things into perspective, and it'll give energy when there isn't energy and things like that. And that's exactly what you're doing when you're DJing. You're putting certain vibes out, and like making movement in the energy level in the music, and telling people when to dance and when to take a break and when to feel cool and all that sort of stuff. So I think at its core, it's kind of the same sort of thing, but just at a much higher, way more refined level.
Yeah, but just controlling the emotions.
Yeah, controlling the emotions as opposed to just the energy. So it's more complicated and more rewarding, I'd say. Like I said, it's just very, it's interesting, and it's definitely more skill involved in doing film, and so much more subtlety involved in it too. You watch a movie and you feel certain things, and you don't really know why, and it's because of the editing and because of the music, and they're really both super important skills that take a long time to develop that a lot of people aren't even aware of. I've always been interested in movies and TV and things like that, and I guess I listened to the music always, but I was never that interested in it when I was younger. I just kind of liked it, and then as I got better at paying attention to music that was around me, then I started to really pick up on what they were doing and things, and I think it's really cool how within film you can do things musically that are extremely simple but that are extremely effective. Mm-hmm. And I like new challenges, and I like to explore new things, and this is kind of the next thing that I feel inspired to explore.
Who are this could be a question for kind of all of us, but who are some of your favorite composers or film scores in general that you really like, or that you found the most influential?
Yeah, one of my favorites is Junkie XL, who is an electronic musician, and his music is just so intense and brings the energy, and I like the sound. It's really thick sounding. Mm-hmm. And then I also really like Johannes, who unfortunately just died. So
I read that.
Yeah, really too bad. But he's done some pretty amazing stuff with pushing the boundaries and making really iconic scores. So his work will live on. But I think those two are probably my favorites that are in the culture right now.
I remember I bought the soundtrack for Mad Max Fury Road, and it's so intense. It's very simple in some ways, but the whole movie is like a chase scene, obviously. But the music, I don't know, it fits it so well. But I remember I'll be driving. I'll be driving with the soundtrack playing, and I'm going ED. I'm like, better slow down a little bit. just on accident. It's just so intense. Yeah. You just feel like you have to.
I find myself trying to knock people off the road when I'm listening to that soundtrack. I can't do
right.
it. That's the same with the Dark Knight. Hans Zimmer soundtrack for the Dark Knight. When I put that on, all of a sudden I'm on the road trying to speed and go through traffic like it's nothing, but it just doesn't work.
Totally.
There's a couple soundtracks that I might have mentioned them on this podcast before. This Danny Elfman soundtrack, well, for any Danny Elfman soundtrack I like, but the soundtrack for Edward Scissorhands is one of my favorites.
Oh, that's really good.
It's very
haunting.
I cried during the end of that movie. It's so Danny Elfman, but it's very sad at the same time. And it's just his sound is very unique. You'll know exactly when one of his scores is playing. And I remember
I loved it when he did Justice League, that they came out and he was going to do Justice League, and he brought back the Batman theme from '89. I thought that was awesome.
Yeah, that was interesting. Obviously, John Williams is the name that everybody says, but the one particular instance for John Williams, the end of Return of the Jedi, when Darth Vader and Luke are fighting their last lightsaber fight before Luke cuts off his hand. When I was like 10 years old, I would rewind and like watch that scene and like just listen to the music and see how it's edited. And like I memorized every shot and the music score for that scene. Just as like a 10-year-old, just trying to figure out like, why do I feel this way?
That's awesome, man.
But I thought it was so well done. Obviously John Williams is a legend as well.
Yeah.
How about you, Livingston? You have a couple others you want to add?
Well, I like James Horner. I've been listening to him a lot lately. Like Star Trek: The Wrath of Khan and Search for Spock. I don't really care for Search for Spock, but I love the score for it. Of course, he's done Avatar and Titanic and whatnot. But I really dig his stuff, and it said that he passed away a few years ago. But of course, I mentioned Hans Zimmer. I like his stuff. It's very. I think he does a lot of his stuff over like on a computer. He doesn't even use a orchestra anymore.
An orchestra?
Yeah.
Orchestra, yeah.
Junkie XL just did something else recently that I saw. I'm trying to remember what it was. I'm looking it up right now.
But like,
he did Deadpool.
Yeah,
a couple years ago.
I think he did some stuff for Justice League and the Batman versus Superman.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love Hans Zimmer too, but the reason I didn't say him is because what I feel like with him is he always collaborates with so many people that it's kind of hard to know what actually is his work and what someone else's. And I don't really know the ins and outs of this, but there's been a lot of sort of scandals of people coming out later on and being like, hey, actually I wrote that and you didn't credit it to me. Like in particular, the Pirates of the Caribbean theme is supposedly his everywhere, but then like there's a huge scandal that Klaus Battle actually did everything, and that Hans just put his name on it. So it's, a lot of. I know he's really talented, but I know that he also just has a lot of other people that he sort of piggybacks off of. But yeah, I love Inception. That's one of my favorite scores of all time.
That's a great score too. Just looking at Junkie XL. Yeah. He's doing the new Tomb Raider movie. And Alita Battle Angel with my Roger.
Yeah, I need to see that Tomb Raider movie.
I was just pushed back to. It was going to come out in June, I think. It's pushed back to December 21st now.
What is
today? I think
Tomb Raider?
Alita Battle Angel.
Oh, Alita.
Battle Angel.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So there's our film news of the week that we'll mention in our podcast.
Yeah, and I think Dark Knight is a great reference too. I mean, that's such a great movie, and the music in it is really incredible. I use that as references a lot because there's the marriage of the real instruments and then the synths and stuff that he uses in there is like really cool and really timeless.
Oh yeah, that was also James Newton Howard who did that. Collaborated with Hans when he came to do that.
Two of the greats.
Yeah, and he did some good stuff. He did The Sixth Sense, King Kong. I really liked how he did King Kong. I don't know if you remember the score to that, but
another composer that I want to throw out is Henry Jackman. I don't know if you listen to his scores. He did a lot of superhero movies recently. But he did like X-Men First Class. I guess most recently he did the Kingsman movies. He did
I like the
movie.
Nice.
I really dig Jerry Goldsmith too. Of course, he passed away like in 2001 or 2, but I liked a lot of his stuff. Of course, he came up with the Star Trek theme and Total Recall.
Mm-hmm.
But it's another good one.
Definitely good. It's cool to see how the superhero movies recently have been a lot more different sounding in the scores than they used to be. They used to kind of all be the same for a while, and then there was a bunch of stuff going around online, people hating on it, like they all sound the same, and like you couldn't remember the themes for any of them or anything like that. And then the guy, I can't remember his name offhand, but he's the guy from Devo who is a composer now. He did the score for the newest Thor Ragnarok movie, and he just made it completely different than any of the other ones, like any of the Marvel ones. It was super cool, like really 80s, really synthy. And
yeah,
it sort of restored my faith in that
style.
one. Yeah, Mark Mother's style, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I was the longest time I was thinking like Marvel is not doing a good job with their scores, and actually DC I thought was doing a way better job when it comes to score. That's about the only thing they're doing good in comparison to Marvel right now, but. Yeah, they're finally picking it up, and I think people are actually listening to people say you need to pick up the score for movies.
Yeah, they're not they weren't as memorable. A lot of them.
They're not.
Sounded,
exactly. One thing I noticed with Justice League when I watched it was that I love Danny Elfman and his music is great, and I noticed the sound effects were so loud that I could barely hear the music sometimes.
Yeah, I noticed that
like
too.
Lasers are cool, but like man, those are some loud lasers.
But what are some projects you're currently working on, whether it's as Vaski or in film?
I'm working on a lot of music, a lot of random music library requests. It's been really fascinating to learn about, like, just music for media in all facets. Like, I've tried to do some commercials and, scoring to picture for TV and things like that, and it's just amazing how writing music for TV is even different than film. Like, even though it's kind of the same, like, a lot of the rules don't apply. They're very different. So I've done a lot of, like, hip-hop stuff for different TV shows, and just finishing up a bunch of things for ITV, which is a big reality network. And at the moment, I've just finished a short film that's like a zombie apocalypse through pizza, like comedy film, and I'm not sure when they're going to be done with it exactly. They keep taking breaks, but it's called Deep Dish Apocalypse, and I'll definitely be posting about it when it comes out. But that's the latest film type thing that I've done, and that's been pretty fun. Then as far as my Vaski stuff, I haven't really done anything for a while, but I have, I've been waiting for inspiration with it. I've just been working on this other projects, so it's pretty cool.
I've been there. You can't always just force it and just throw stuff out there. It's not really ready,
Yeah.
Inspiration.
It's funny. I feel like creatively, I think I'm close to wanting to write some of it, but I haven't really felt the urge to sit down and do it. And I think it's because when I want to do it, I want to approach it from like a completely new angle, and I don't think that I'm there, like, in that headspace yet. And it's kind of the same thing where, actors that don't want to get pigeonholed, they won't take a role if it's the same role they've played. They'll take a role that is like a completely different one that people don't think they can do. And that's kind of where I'm at with this. That I've been doing some producing for some other artists and like helping other people out and that sort of thing, and learning a lot and just seeing where I want to take my creative energy next time.
That's one question that I kind of just thought of. We didn't really discuss it before, but like when you're releasing you release one album and maybe it's one type of music and you want to do something totally different. Have you, I don't know how to word it exactly, have you experienced your fans saying, oh, why did you do something different? They want more of the same, but people don't, even if you release more of the same, then people would always say, oh, it's just the same thing. You know what I mean? Like, it's hard to always, in terms of like pushing yourself creatively and like also, pleasing your fans at the same time, if that makes sense. Well, how would you deal with that, I guess, in some ways?
Yeah, it is a fine line because you're going to make them mad either way. So you got to just do what you feel is right. And I definitely took a pretty big left turn with my Vaski music, and I don't think it was a good career move, but it's what I needed to do, and it sort of expanded my caliber of like what I'm able to produce in a new way, and I definitely don't regret it. It was just, it would have been smarter if I wanted super long longevity with this project to just keep doing the same thing. So that seems to be what is most successful with music artists, at least, is, do the same thing over and over again, but just make it slightly different. And I don't know, that's not the type of person that I am. So I think maybe I would need to have multiple projects to just be appeasing myself, or have something that's just unexpected all the time.
Yeah. No, I think that's a good way to go about it, because otherwise you do the same thing 3 or 4 times, 3 or 4 albums or something, then that's it. That's who you are.
Yeah.
You're stuck.
People get sick of it or whatever.
And you can't. I don't know. It's an interesting thing, because Livingston and I are working on a project that we're not going to talk a whole lot about yet. But I mean, we're trying to make it different than American Beast, our first film, in a lot of ways. But we don't want to just keep doing horror forever. And if we do too many of them in a row, then it's like that's it. So that's another thing we've discussed, and we'll obviously talk about that, Livingston and I, on future podcasts as we get, as we can talk more about it. We're not going to say anything more about it right now.
Right.
One thing I think that I thought was really interesting, and this is a side note, is Mark Mothersbaugh did the Crash Bandicoot video game soundtracks, which, if you ever played those in the original, I had no idea. It was really funny.
They remastered those.
I heard
they just remastered those, I thought that's pretty funny. What advice would you give someone like who's just starting out? Maybe they're creating their own music, or they want to start to get into that. Maybe they are 13, 14 years old. Obviously, technology is easier to accessible. But what overall advice would you give to them? And if it's fine if it's just, don't give up or something like that.
Never.
No, I have a lot more to say than that regarding that, because I felt like when I was starting out that there wasn't very much help out there for me, and I had to really figure it out for myself. And I asked a lot of people, but just because of where I grew up, like in the suburbs of Minnesota, that there was no one qualified to give me advice in that until I got on the internet. And like even then, like there's a lot of charlatans out there, and like I would say that when you're wanting to do something, there's going to be like so many people who will give you advice and tell you what to do, but the only people that you should listen to for advice are doing what you want to do and are already successful at it. So like people who are just advice givers or seem to always know what's going on, they might not be the best. They have no idea what to do, but like listen to someone who is doing exactly what you want to do and is already super successful. They'll know exactly what's going on.
Yeah.
But if you're first starting off with music, then I think the most important thing right now is to create something that's fresh, because there's so much of the same sort of stuff out there that it's got to be something that's really new, and it's got to be experimental. But like, I think the best way to think about it is like, you want to make something that can sort of live in the same world as existing music. It can't be super weird, but it's got to have new soundscapes or new textures. That seems to be the way that music is going, is that if you look, most of the popular songs use a lot of the same chords, but the instrumentation is always changing, and like catchy lyrics is always a thing that'll be there. So like look at what is never going to change and then change the other parts of it.
Okay, yeah, that's pretty good. And you reminded me of something that's your first point, about people giving advice that have never actually, achieved what you want to. That's something that's something that Livingston and I did kind of come across a little bit, is, when we were working on our film, a lot of people said, oh, you should do that and this, and it's like, well, I'd see what they have done, and I'd be like, well, not to sound cocky, but I think I can do better than what you did. I think I can go farther, and, I wouldn't say that to their face or anything like that, but that's kind of how I felt a lot of times, and
right.
And I think it's better to, you can't just, you got to set your goals pretty high, I guess, and, that's
no, totally.
I'm going to go with that.
There's also some people out there that, and I won't name names or anything like that, but I have had some discussions where people won't go out and do the things that they want to do because they're waiting for somebody to give them that opportunity, and sometimes you just need to go out there and get the opportunity yourself.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
You got to make your own opportunity, and that kind of goes back. We're doing a whole full circle thing here, but like, a lot of people that might be really talented that aren't willing to actually put in the time and effort to make something. That's the most important thing, so. But that's I really like your answer. And that's different. That's pretty good, though, especially for someone that wants to work in the music industry, which I know very little about personally, except for from what I've learned from you.
Yeah, it's crazy how much it's changing now because of Spotify alone. I mean, like, for a long time, people were saying the internet broke the music industry, and now they're saying the internet saved the music industry. So it's just a dumb way of going in circles about saying that technology is changing. Like, things are always going to be changing, and like, the people that are able to take advantage of whatever is new and innovative are the ones that are going to do well. Like, if there's like a new camera out there and you're the one that's using it and it looks better than everyone else, I'm like, of course it's going to be great. So using the newest tools and stuff like that, I think, is hugely important in whatever you're trying to do. But yeah, I think that you guys both have a lot of good points, and it's definitely been cool to talk to you.
No, I appreciate it. Is there anything else? We're going to kind of wrap it up here. Anything else you want to add before we sign off for the day?
No, I don't think I have anything else to say. It's just, people, if you want to be a creator, then what Livingston was saying, like, people are always waiting for opportunities, but you can create these things yourself. Like, when you read people's stories, then it just seems like things just kind of happen to them, but it's because they kept trying, and like, they kept trying to force things that weren't there. Like, they weren't giving up, they weren't just waiting, they were like making it happen for themselves. So yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Where can people find you on social media?
The best is probably Instagram, Vaski Music, Vaski Music.
Okay. So make sure to follow him on Instagram there. I think I am already. If I'm not, I will do that right now. But that's about it for today's podcast. I'm Taylor.
I am Livingston.
And we'll see you next week.